Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Helping Children and Young People Cope During Lockdown. So there's still give them a few minutes to get ready. I'll just apologise in advance that my webcam won't be on for this webinar, just because I'm feeling a wee bit under the weather. So you'll only be seeing the slides and hearing my voice today. Greetings from Fiji. It's very exciting. So just before we get started, I'd like to go over a few things just so you know how to participate in today's event. So I've taken a screenshot of an example of the attendee interface. So you should see something that looks like this on your own computer desktop in the upper right-hand corner. So it's just letting you know that you're listening in using your computer speaker system by default and that you'll be muted for the duration of the webinar. But you'll have the opportunity to submit any text questions by typing those into the questions pane of the control panel. And you can send them in anytime during the presentation, and what I'll do is I'll collect those and address them during the Q&A session at the end. There are also some handouts available to you which you should be able to access through this control panel, and they're just offering you some additional information about some of the things that we'll be talking about today. And you can also download these during the webinar, but they'll be made available on the First Psychology's website after the webinar under their news tab. And I'll link that in the follow-up email. So don't worry about trying to get hold of any of the handouts after the webinar if you don't get a chance to download them just now. So I'll just introduce myself now, seeing as you can't see me today. My name is Dr. Heather Meikle. I'm a counselling psychologist and also work as a clinical projects officer at First Psychology. So I've worked at First Psychology Scotland for about 2 years, first as a student and then as a practitioner developing one-to-one therapy. So now I work both in delivering therapy and also in developing other resources for clients, including this webinar series. So I'd be really keen to get your feedback about what you've enjoyed or what you think can be improved about this after the webinar. So in today's webinar, we're going to look at some of the challenges that our children and young people are likely to face during lockdown and some of the best ways to help them cope. So to do that, we're going to look at the three main things that children are going to miss. That's their usual routine, their chance to connect with their community, and their opportunities to be successful and accomplish things. We're also going to look at how we might help them manage their anxieties or worries that are specific to the current situation. Yeah, we're going to take a look at two young people who are currently struggling to cope with the lockdown, Priya and Tom. So hopefully by working through these two examples, you'll get to see how some of these techniques are used and how you might apply them to your own situation. But obviously, I do recognise that everyone's situation is different, so you'll be able to ask any more specific questions that you have in the Q&A session or in the questions panel. So Priya here is 8 years old and she lives with her mum and dad. Priya's mum is a nurse and Priya feels quite sad and afraid a lot of the time because she's heard that a lot of nurses are getting the virus and she's worried that her mum might get sick. She is finding it difficult to concentrate on schoolwork because of her worries, and she's finding it hard to keep herself entertained and distracted, especially as she doesn't really have anyone else to play with right now and her dad is spending a lot of his time at home working. Tom, on the other hand, is 16 and he lives with his 4 younger brothers and his mum. So he's worried about how the school closures and exam cancellations are going to affect him and his dream to go to university to become an engineer. So he's feeling increasingly more low and anxious about the current situation and the future, and he's struggling to talk to anyone about it. So as a result, he's fighting more with his siblings and his mum, and he's spending more time alone in his room. I just want to do a quick poll just to find out if anyone's children are having similar concerns to Priya and Tom. So just select the response that's most appropriate and press submit. So it looks like about half of you have responded. So if you've not responded yet, just go ahead and submit your responses now and I'll close the poll in a few moments. So I'm just going to close the poll now, and I'll just share the results with everyone. So it does look like the majority of people think that their children are having concerns at least somewhat similar to Priya or Tom. If you've selected that your concerns or your child's concerns are nothing like Priya or Tom, please do let me know in the questions pane if there's anything specific that you would like covered, and I'll make sure to try and fit that in somewhere so that we've got a little bit of something for everyone. So I want to ask another question as well. I just want to know, how confident do you feel about being able to help your children cope with the lockdown? So just same again, just select the most appropriate response and press submit. So it looks like most of you have responded. If you've not done so yet, just go ahead and do that now, and I'll close the poll in a wee moment. So I'm just going to close the poll now, and I'll just this with you. So it looks like a lot of you are feeling quite confident in helping your children cope, but it looks like there's at least some room for improvement. And same again, if you selected, not very confident, if there's anything that's specific that you think would be helpful for you to learn today, please do let me know in the questions panel. So just to get started, we're going to come back to Priya and Tom and see how we might help them cope better with the lockdown, and see if we can get more of you to feel more confident as well. So the first thing that we're going to talk about is maintaining a routine. So it's important to maintain a routine during lockdown so that everything doesn't blur into kind of sameness. So creating a routine for younger children is particularly important. So for Priya, having a routine can help her feel more safe and less anxious, because her days are a lot more predictable, and there's an element of consistency and security. So to help Priya, we might want to mark out different parts of the day for different activities. What I've got up on the screen is just very basic. I've picked some school subjects, times for break, and food and things like that. So what you would kind of want to do is we would agree a schedule with Priya, so she knows like what time she needs to do some work, what time she can do some gaming, when she needs to move about, when she needs to be helpful around the house, and when she needs to sleep, and so on. So I have included an activity planner in the handouts that you could use for this, but you might also want to encourage your child to design or craft their own schedule. If they feel like they have more ownership over it, they might be more likely to engage with it because it'll be theirs, and you'll also have made the schedule into something more fun. So maybe not doing enough schoolwork, especially because she has said that she's been struggling to concentrate. We could view this kind of break as an opportunity for more child-led learning. So we could say to Priya, let's write down all the different things that you could use this time to learn, do, or experience that you might not get to do at school. And then every morning, you can ask Priya to put together a school schedule made up of those things on her list. And by helping her to choose her activities, she's a lot more likely to engage with them. We might also ask Dad, who's the primary parent at the moment while Mum's working for the NHS, to participate in more of those activities with Priya as well, just to help make them more appealing. It's important to acknowledge, though, that while creating a routine for children is important, we don't want to take on the role of Priya's teacher if that starts to cause conflict, not least because this will cause more stress and anxiety for both the parent and for Priya. But our role as parents right now is really first and foremost to look after our children's physical and mental health. So that might sometimes mean less schoolwork. So we can also do something similar for Tom, as more structure should hopefully mean less boredom and more distraction from his worries and help improve his mood. But for Tom, one of his main struggles is living in such a busy house and finding the space and privacy to do the things that he needs. So Tom's in a situation where lots of people are fighting over who gets to decide what to watch on TV, who cooks and cleans, who gets to use the living room or the dining table for their studies or hobbies, and everything else. So to help agree a fair system and help avoid arguments and make sure that there are times when Tom gets some privacy, we would create a household rota for who is in which room when and who does what chores. And just remember, while routine is great, children and teenagers should probably also be allowed a few doovie days where they can do whatever they want. And that way, they might be more willing to take a structured educational approach on other days, and this should also help to reduce conflict. They might also be more willing to spend their time learning a new skill. We could say to them, you're so lucky, you're one of the few year groups ever to get this opportunity. How are you going to use it? Because teenagers might not yet have twigged that in the future, universities or employers will probably be asking them how they spent this time off. So far then, Priya and Tom are starting to feel a bit better, having a bit more structure to their days, and are agreeing to engage in more activities that will distract them from their worries and improve their mood. So the next thing we want to do is make sure that they stay connected during this lockdown. So probably the most important thing for us and our kids is staying connected. And for young people especially, they often feel better understood by their peers than by their family. And for many, it's their friends that they're most likely to go to for support. So both Priya and Tom have said that the hardest thing about this lockdown is not being able to see their friends. So how can we help? So for Priya and Tom, connecting with their friends online will probably be a big part of staying connected. Screen time rules might have to be relaxed because it's really important that they do stay in touch with their friends. And they might be using apps like Skype or Zoom, Facebook, House Party that will all let them chat to their friends and play some fun games as well. So we might be encouraging them to make use of that. And reminding them maybe that, seeing someone's face on a video call can make a big difference compared to chatting just on the phone or by text. So encouraging them to video chat can help to lift their mood and help them feel less lonely, more so than just messaging. And as well as all the usual ways of encouraging Tom and Priya to stay in touch with their friends on social media and video chatting, we might also encourage them to get gaming online. Gaming is a great way for them to have fun and connect with other people, whether that's people from their own house or from their community or even internationally. Gaming does allow them to reach out and talk to people from all over the world in similar situations to themselves, and it can allow them to share their experiences and life with others and find a place where they can take their minds off of their thoughts and their worries and get some support from their peers. And as well as connecting with friends, we might also want to encourage Tom and Priya to connect with their neighbours, because that can increase the amount of face-to-face interactions they can have. And this is all, within the social distancing rules that we have in place. So as Priya's an only child, we might want to help her be a bit creative about how we can help her to connect with people in her community. So she could perform some skits or songs or dances in the street or in our neighbours' front gardens to keep them entertained. She could volunteer to help walk a dog for a vulnerable person or paint them a picture. That will all help her to feel more connected to others in her community. As well as young people are generally less affected by the virus, although that certainly shouldn't make them complacent, but it does mean that they can be well placed if they're not in a high risk household to be a volunteer. So for example, delivering food or medicines to people who are in quarantine. Study after study finds that people who volunteer tend to be happier than those who don't. So by encouraging Tom to engage with his community, his mood will likely improve. And young people who are feeling that their lives are maybe out of control right now might find that doing something positive for other people can help them manage their anxiety better, as they're feeling a bit less helpless. And there are all sorts of neighbourhood schemes springing up, so that would be great to encourage Tom to get involved in. At the same time, we want to help Priya and Tom connect with their family because that's who they're going to be spending the most time with. So for Priya, we want to help her connect with her mum in particular because she's the most worried about her mum. So we're going to encourage them to play maybe more games together as a family. So whether that's board games that you as a parent maybe haven't played since you were a kid, or taking the opportunity to play one of their favourite games. Maybe you'll discover a love of Minecraft, Animal Crossing, or Fortnite. We don't give ourselves permission to play enough as adults, so now could be the perfect time to rediscover play with our kids. And if Priya sees her mum relaxing and enjoying herself, she's also less likely to feel like there's any reason to be anxious. And while it's important that teenagers are allowed to be more independent and spend lots of time with their friends, it is important to find a balance so that they don't feel ignored or uncared for. So teenagers like Tom might not know how to really talk about their emotions with their parents, but it can be easier for them to open up if you're sharing an activity with them. So it's a bit less formal and they might feel less pressured. So making sure that if you're spending some quality time together, maybe the next time that Tom's helping his mum, make bread or do the dishes, she can just check in with him and see how he's doing. So we've now spent some time encouraging Priya and Tom to stay in touch with their friends over video chat, spend some quality time with their family, and connect with the wider community. So as a result, they are feeling a bit more supported by their peers. They're therefore feeling a lot happier and less isolated. By connecting with their wider community, they're also making more meaningful connections. So that's having a positive impact on their well-being because they're helping out and sharing with other people. That kind of leads us on quite nicely to our next topic on helping children and young people cope, which is finding opportunities to be productive and accomplish things and be successful. So Priya and Tom might be finding that they have less opportunities to accomplish things and be successful when they're stuck at home. You know, they don't have classes, sports clubs, music groups, projects to work on, or exams to study for. And without getting to feel productive, they can become less motivated, less engaged, and more down. So it could often feel like there's no point in getting out of bed, getting dressed, or doing anything. And the days can become quite meaningless. So one easy way for young kids to feel productive while they're at home is just encouraging them to help out with household tasks like housework or cooking. And it doesn't matter if the accomplishment is school-based. You know, there's lots of useful life skills that aren't covered by the curriculum. They could be learning to bake bread together. You teach them to cook eggs in 6 different ways. Help them learn a language, redecorate their room, learn a TikTok dance, play a video game. And you know, you don't have to be an expert in any of these things yourself. There are, you know, lots of online courses that have been made available in the lockdown that are free. So for example, Tom always thought that the idea of learning to code was quite daunting, but there are plenty of online resources that make it easy and fun, and he can take his time to do it at his own pace. So by learning this on his time off, he'll be making himself more skilled for the future as well. On the other hand, Priya's always wanted to learn to draw cartoon characters so she can start her own comic book, and there are courses and videos online for that too. Just keep in mind that everything is about balance, so while it's good for Priya and Tom to be productive sometimes, this is still a very difficult and unusual time that we're all living through. So it's okay for them to have less productive days, or for you all to curl up on the couch together and binge watch something on Netflix. So Priya and Tom are now feeling much better. You know, we've helped them to adapt to the lockdown and regain some of the main things that they were missing: their routine, their chances to connect, and opportunities to be productive. But what about those lingering worries that Priya has about her mum contracting the virus, or Tom's fears about his future at school? And I suppose our general worries that I'm sure we all have, that the world is changing. So if your children are asking about the virus or seem anxious about it, it's good to talk to them, you know, honestly but calmly about what's happening, and to not ignore or shield them from what's going on. Children look to adults in their life for comfort when they're distressed, and they'll take a lead on how to view things from you. So you don't have to have all the answers, but it is better to have a gentle conversation just to reassure your child that they can talk to you, so they don't feel like they're on their own. And you may need to gauge their level of understanding or interest to decide what level of detail to go into, but it is important to respond to their questions and concerns so that their anxieties don't build up. And you could start by asking them what they think is going on, if their friends are talking about it and what they're saying, and if they have any questions. And reassure your child that it is unlikely that they will get seriously ill, and if they do feel ill, that you will look after them. In this case, Priya's concerned about who will look after her mum if she catches the virus. So letting Priya know the kind of support her mum has could be helpful, so that she doesn't feel that she needs to worry about her. Starting a conversation, it can be difficult, especially if you're worried that your child is having a hard time. But you know, you're the leading expert when it comes to your child, so you can probably tell when they're not in the mood to talk, or when they're not responding to your attempts. And above all, it's important to remember that as a parent, you know, you don't need to know all the answers, but you can help to contain some of their fears and anxieties just by being there for them. So I have included some resources in the handouts and at the end of the webinar. They'll all be linked on the First Psychology website, that'll be in your follow-up email. So if you have got any concerns about this and specifically, then do check those out. And one key way of helping Tom and Priya cope with their anxieties is to listen and just reassure them. So it's understandable that Tom and Priya will be sad about a lot of the things that they're missing. So it is important to acknowledge those losses, to show them that we know that these are not trivial things, and that we appreciate that it is horrible to have to do without them. For young Priya, if she's feeling anxious, she's most likely to want to be reassured and hugged by her mum and dad, So giving her a bit of extra attention will help to relax her worries and help her to feel safe and happy. Correcting any misinformation about the virus that she might have heard from her friends or seen online will also help to manage some of those anxieties and reassure her that mum is taking good care of herself. It's also good to remember that it is still really hard for teenagers to manage their feelings. They're not children or adults, but there's something in between. And that can be hard for parents to navigate. So we want to make sure that we're giving Tom enough space, but not too much. So it is important that parents do make themselves available to their teenagers and listen to what they need. So for Tom, he's finding it difficult thinking about the future. So we may want to reassure him that this period will pass, and also that we might see things differently afterwards. So there could be opportunities to make the world better that they haven't thought of yet. So I've just realised that I've not mentioned that the webinar is getting recorded, so a link to view the recording will also be made available to you in the follow-up email. So if you want to refresh anything that you've learned or look at any of the slides, they will be available to you to get a hold of and watch. And they'll also be up on the First Psychology website. I just noticed someone asking there about if the presentation slides will be available. So it will just all be available as part of the recording. It's also a good recommendation to help Tom and Priya and ourselves to limit the amount of news coverage on the virus that we're digesting. So limiting ourselves and them to a couple times a day rather than viewing like a constant stream of updates, because this can really increase anxiety, especially if it's sensationalized or scaremongering. The internet can be a wonderful source of information, but obviously, we can't always trust everything that we read on it, particularly if it is on social media. And children are more susceptible than most to fake news. So we could use this time at home to maybe give Tom and Priya a bit of a primer. We could talk to them about how a situation like coronavirus can be misreported, discuss how they could go about finding the most reliable information, and debate which sources are the most trustworthy. So for example, the NHS website, the UK government's information, and the World Health Organization are all good places to start. And as well, sharing good news is a really good thing to do as well. So if you hear about, a successful vaccine trial or about some of the really nice things that other people are doing for each other, it's really good and positive to share some of that as well. And if all that hasn't worked yet, and there are some techniques that might help Tom and Priya to relax and help reduce their anxiety. And so obviously this is kind of a bit more aimed towards our young people that are kind of primarily anxious just about the coronavirus. If they've got more long-standing anxiety or depression, they might need a little bit more support. But for the moment, we'll just have a quick look. So things like mindfulness and meditation is incredibly helpful at helping calm down their central nervous system, reducing anxiety and stress, and improving their well-being. And there are lots of resources at First Psychology, as well as on other websites and apps that are aimed specifically towards teaching young people these skills. Keeping a journal might also be a really useful idea. So getting Tom and Priya to write down how they're feeling can help them process their emotions and detach from some of their worries. And it might also be really interesting for them to have a record of this time that they can look back on in the future. Getting into nature and getting fresh air is also really important for enhancing our physical and mental well-being. So if Tom and Priya can get outside safely while social distancing, we'll definitely be encouraging them to do that. Listening to music is also another great way, especially for young people, to help improve their mood and regulate some of their emotions, such as listening to calming music or lyrics that kind of resonate with them, can help them better express themselves or better regulate themselves. And if none of this works and you're still really worried that your child's mental health may really be suffering, do speak to somebody about it. There are lots of practitioners at First Psychology that are highly qualified to help you and your child through this difficult time, and you can get all of their information on the First Psychology website or their Twitter or Facebook page. And one of the most important things, really looking after yourselves. So seeing parents under enormous stress can weigh heavily on the minds of some kids. Remember that children and young people often take their emotional cues from the important adults in their life. So how you respond to the situation is really important. So it's important to manage your own emotions and remain calm, listen to and acknowledge your young person's concerns, speaking kindly to them and answering any questions they have honestly. And it's also important to give yourself treats, to pamper yourself, take a bath, order takeout, read a book. If you want any further guidance on how to look after your own mental well-being during lockdown, then do check out our previous webinar, How to De-stress and Relax During Lockdown, and that's available on the First Psychology website under their news tab as well. So today we've managed to help Priya and Tom adapt a little bit to their new situation and learn some new ways to maintain a routine, stay connected with others, be productive and manage some of their anxieties. If you want to learn more about any of the techniques that I have mentioned today, I would definitely encourage you to check out some of First Psychology's podcasts. I've got the links up here, but you can also, if you're on SoundCloud, just search for First Psychology and they'll all come up. And some of the self-help booklets, they're available in the handouts. And I've also put in some additional resources. All of these will be up on the First Psychology website page that I'll link you to in your follow-up email. So don't worry if you don't have time to write these down. But I'll leave them up during the Q&A as well. So if you do want to write them down, you'll have the opportunity to do that. So just very quickly, I'd like to do another poll. Answer has changed. So just asking, how confident are you feeling now about being able to help your children cope with the lockdown? So just same again, just select the most appropriate response and press submit. So it looks like most of you have voted. If you've not done so, just do so now. I'm just going to close the poll in a wee minute. So I'm just going to close the poll now and I'll share the results with you. So it does look like more of you are starting to feel more confident about helping your children cope. So that's great. If there's anything that you think that I can help you with that I've not answered already, do let me know in the questions panel and we're just about to get to that now. So presentation side of things. So we're going to begin answering some of the questions that you've submitted. And as a reminder, you can still submit any questions through the questions pane in your attendee control panel. Now, I've also put my personal email address down at the bottom of this slide. So if there's any questions that you want to ask me after the webinar, then absolutely feel free to send me a wee email. So let me just have a look at the question. So someone's asking, is sticking to a regular-ish bedtime routine through lockdown the best idea? Late nights can lead to sleeping in and feeling of wasted days or time. So yeah, I would definitely agree with that. Staying as much to their normal routine as possible is definitely very helpful. They might have some trouble getting to sleep more so than usual, just if they are a bit worried about things. So keeping things more stable and consistent is a great idea. I've got a long question here. So someone's asking motivation levels. So definitely, I think kind of some of the stuff that I mentioned about maybe helping them decide what it is they want to do, obviously within, I guess, boundaries. If they can, choose some of it. So if they're, getting a bit struggling to get motivated to engage in schoolwork, for example, encouraging them to learn some things and keep busy doing some things that are still productive, but that they are maybe more interested and more engaged in can really help improve their motivation. And, making sure that they stick with their routine as well can help sort of avoid that kind of sameness and meaninglessness that the days can end up getting. If there's any other questions you have about kind of enhancing their motivation level, definitely do email me. That's all I can think of off the top of my head right now, but I could maybe come up with a better answer for you later. I've got another question here that I think we've just about got enough time to answer. This is about, okay, so if your teenager's not taking the lockdown seriously and has maybe tried to meet up with their friends, kind of what can you do about that? So yeah, teenagers are probably going to miss their friends a lot, and they might feel a bit more invincible in the face of the virus and maybe be a little bit more risky or impulsive. So it's definitely worth explaining to them why guidelines do need to be followed. And one useful rule of thumb, I guess, is asking instead of telling. So it could be that you ask them, why do you think we're isolating? What do you think the ramifications of you meeting up with your friends might be? And if they do sneak out, we don't want to turn it into a big drama, which will probably have a more negative impact on their mental health. But it might be more prudent to, reiterate why it's important that they don't do it again. And whatever happens, we don't want to try and punish them by taking away their technology. So what we have to be really careful of is not letting them become too isolated. So instead, we can maybe encourage them to stay connected to their friends, kind of virtually in a healthy way, rather than going outside and putting other people at risk. And I was just thinking about that motivation level one again. And I guess the advice that I often give to university students, especially who are doing a lot of self-study, is not expecting that you're going to be engaged or studying for something for a long period of time, that you're going to get like 10 hours of studying in a day, or that you're going to be able to exercise every day, but especially if it's studying or schoolwork, making sure that that is broken up by enjoyable activities and rewarding hard work, as well as just, I know for university students, they often reward their hard work by doing more hard work. So definitely trying to avoid that sort of vicious cycle, which can be really unmotivating. So hopefully that helps as well. So I think that might be everything we do have time for just now. Yes, we're getting a wee bit late. So if you have any more questions, or I didn't get around to your question, because there was quite a few today, that was great. Please do email me. I'd be happy to get back in touch with you. So I do want to say thank you for attending today's webinar. So that was helping children and young people cope during lockdown. Once you leave the webinar today, you will receive a survey on the presentation. So we'd really appreciate if you could complete that and give us some feedback. And you'll also get a follow-up email within 24 or 48 hours with a link to view the recording of today's webinar and a link to the First Psychology website to view the handouts and resources that I linked during the presentation. So if you enjoyed today's webinar, I would also really encourage you to check out some of our previous webinars on managing stress and managing conflict during lockdown by going onto the First Psychology website and checking out their news page. And we also have another webinar coming up next week on maintaining well-being after lockdown. So if you have any concerns or worries about what's going to happen once lockdown starts to lift, please do tune in to that. So on behalf of First Psychology Scotland and myself, thank you so much for me today, and have a great rest of your day.